Ты дура, она не отлепляется.
В смысле?
Damit Gummo Gummo zum Super Mario 64 Eisberg. In 2026, wir zischen rein in 58 Minuten voller Fakten, Deep Dives und vieles mehr. Lasst eine Bewertung dafür die wirklich faktenreichen Mairo 64 Angelegenheiten und für Donald Trump. Ehre. Abonniert den Kanal, falls ihr es noch nicht getan habt. Ich küsse euer Herz. Und nun zischen wir.
Saying that Super Mario 64 is one of the most influential games of all time is an understatement because 30 years after its release, there are people making videos about it, YouTubers with more than 300,000 subscribers dedicated to exploring the mechanics of the game, speedrunners reaching the limits of what's humanly possible, and researchers investigating lost media and early prototypes.
Ist doch krass, oder? Leute haben Hobbys. Soweit sie eben in diesem System können. No? Und das ist das, was euch die herrschende Klasse nehmen will. So, no?
Because of this and because I've dedicated
Weiter rauben will von dem, was ihr bereits an Freizeit habt. No? Ganz kurz hier, ne? Reingestreut.
my YouTube channels to make icebergs, here it is. My Super Mario 64 Iceberg.
Say my name.
Eisenberg.
Eisenberg. You're goddamn right.
Low
Habe ich voll vergessen zu sagen. TheEisenBergExperience. Ehrenkanal. Wir zischen.
Poly Mario. This simply refers to the fact that if you're in a specific area and Mario is far from the camera, he'll become a low poly version of himself when he moves. This is done to save memory usage and resources that would heavily affect the gameplay.
Ich find's krass, dass das halt Mario von der Ferne so darzustellen wie von vorn, dass das so krass in die Grafikleistung geht oder so. Aber ich finde auch irgendwo so ein bisschen, der sieht hier so ein bisschen aus wie der Mario Party 1, 2, 3 Mario. Checkt ihr? Ich sehe da ein paar Ähnlichkeiten.
There had been a Super Mario 32, this would have been Mario's 3D model.
Oder für Mario Party 1, 2, 3.
Behind the waterfall. I've always been fascinated with the waterfall outside of Peach's castle. It's almost a cliché that a lot of cascades in video games have some secret behind them. It
Ja, wer checkt das nicht auch selber hier unter aus?
reminds me of the lava fall in Ocarina of Time in Dodongo's cavern that contains a heart behind it. The waterfall doesn't contain any secrets or entrances, but it's connected to two events. First, if you enter the metal cap level, the river that flows there leads you to the aforementioned waterfall. This might be a clue that the worlds inside the paintings in Peach's castle are real locations rather than just fantasy realms within the Mario universe. The second event is connected.
Ja, ganz kurz. Das fand ich immer ganz cool, dass es so räumliche Connections gibt. Dass es nicht Laderaum ist und du kommst in ein Level und das war's dann so, sondern dass es ein explorierendes Schloss ist, dass du halt erkunden kannst, wie du willst.
Connected to Yoshi's fate. As many of you know, once Yoshi gives Mario 100 lives, he jumps onto the waterfall, never to be seen again for the rest of the game. To me, this has always been a mystery. I don't think there was any need for Yoshi to go anywhere after you obtain the special jump and the 1-ups. He could just stay there, but instead, he jumps onto the waterfall, leading many to think that he ended his life.
Das habe ich nie gedacht. Ich dachte halt, dass er halt aus der Area rausspringt und dann zurück in seine Welt geht oder so. Irgendwie. Und jetzt nichts Spannendes oder sowas. Also klar fragt man sich, wo ist er? Ne? Wo ist es gewesen? Ja, ist immer die Frage, wo es gewesen ist.
On the roof of the castle with 0 stars. This is an old trick that took me almost 30 years to pull off, and what you're seeing right now is my first successful attempt. If you want to reach the top of Peach's castle with no stars, all you have to do is to go to the east part of the castle, align yourself with the vertex that connects the hill with the ground, press A to jump on place, then, as you're falling, press the stick forward so that you land on the edge of the ground on the hill, make the second jump and press forward so that you climb up the hill as much as possible. As soon as Mario touches the ground, make a third jump, and before you start sliding, move the stick to the left so that Mario adopts this position, and once on the edge of the hill, make a jump. If you did it right, Mario will hang from the edge of the castle, and now you'll be able to explore the roof. I thought Yoshi was always there, but if you reach this place without 120 stars, Yoshi will be absent. If you activated the red switch before, you can use the wing cap to fly outside of the castle, which is a lot of fun, but if you want to get the special jump, meet Yoshi and get 100 lives, you'll need 120 stars.
F.
Giant Dead Dodongo. The Alice Real sign at Peach's Courtyard in Super Mario 64 isn't the only game where it shows up. 3 years after the release of Super Mario 64, we would see this sign reused in Dodongo's Cavern in Ocarina of Time, but
Alice Real 2401. Oder Eternal Star, irgendwie so.
this time, the player would be able to read what it says. Giant Dead Dodongo. When it says red, a new way to go will open. This of course isn't the message on the sign, it's only information used in the context of Ocarina of Time to open the Giant Dodongo's mouth, so the mystery remains. Is that really you? Mario, is that really you?
Der Rechtschreibfehler ist mir noch nie aufgefallen.
Refers to a typo in Yoshi's dialogue. However, that's not the only typo or mistake in the game. If you read one of the signposts on the floating island in Bob-omb's battlefield, it says, use the control stick to guide Mario, pull back to fly up. In Cool Cool Mountain, if you speak to the head of the snowman, he'll say, have you run into any headhunters lately? Let me know if you've spotted any mistakes like that in Super Mario 64.
Crazy.
Mario's health and oxygen use the same meter.
Kann man
If
sich
you've ever
streiten.
played Conker's Bad Fur Day, you may remember that Conker has two separate meters, one for health represented by chocolate and another one for oxygen represented by his own face. However, this works differently in Super Mario 64, where both Mario's health and oxygen are shown using the same pie chart.
Ja, das hat die Leute halt so aufgeregt dann, oder was heißt aufgeregt, aber das ist halt dann so aufgefallen, dass man es dann in Sunshine dann entfernt hat. Ne?
Can't think of another game where something like this happens, but as you may know, it has its benefits. If Mario is close to dying, you can simply jump into any deep body of water and there you go, full health. I know the main danger in this game comes from falling off platforms, but I've used this technique a couple of times to keep Mario from losing a life. If you're in Snowman's Land, be careful, because instead of healing you, the water actually damages Mario because of the stage's freezing temperatures.
O7.
Lucky to skip. If you like watching Super Mario 64 speedruns, I'm sure you've seen this before. At the beginning of the game, as soon as you step on the bridge that leads to Peach's castle, Lucky 2 would talk to you. Nonetheless, speedrunners discover that if you step on the very edge of the bridge, you can skip said cutscene. This happens because the trigger box doesn't cover the outer edges of the bridge entirely.
Habt ihr denn schon mal gepullt, den Move? Ich hab's schon mal geschafft.
This only saves a couple of seconds in a speedrun, but even a fraction of a second counts. Distorted Boo's laugh. In Big Boo's Hunt, players have reported an unusual low-pitched version of the Boo's laugh. I entered the level and stayed there for around 15 minutes, but I didn't hear anything.
Ach so, ich dachte, er meint die Tür, die er gerade betreten hat. Wenn du einen Dreisprung machst und dabei irgendwie so ein Somersault, also nach vorne hechtest und dann irgendwie gegen eine Wand oder so crashst, dann kommt so eine creepige also nicht Mario, aber so eine creepige Stimme, die dann ertönt. Ich glaube, in Mario 64 DS wurde das aber entfernt. Kann das?
I've checked videos on YouTube and some of them have something in common. The low-pitched laugh happens as soon as they enter the house.
Junge, da auch?
I checked the Super Mario Wiki for more information, but it doesn't contain anything related to this occurrence. Somebody in the comment section of a video where we can hear the laugh in Super Mario 3D All-Stars explains the following. So every room in this game has a table that is used to play some sound effect that adjusts the pitch and the frequency to play sound effects. It is the same table, just the parameters change when you enter a room. Outside of the mansion, this table is used to play the bull laughs, which are high pitch and the frequency is random. So here's where it gets really cool and interesting. When you enter the mansion, the table's parameters are shifted to play some other sound effects inside of the mansion, but the script of the bull's laugh is still running for 2 frames after the table is shifted, so there's a possibility that within those 2 frames, the bull laugh sound effect is called to be played with the table's parameters shifted, which they need to be lower pitch sound effects, so you hear a way lower pitch bull laugh.
Crazy.
Wing cap level seen from below. I recall seeing a series of Super Mario 64 challenges in a Nintendo magazine from around 1998, and the staff showed a picture of the wing cap level from below, asking players how to trigger this view. I spent hours trying to pull it off, until I realized that by mashing Z right before Mario enters the level, the camera will stay down and Mario will quickly come down with a ground pound.
Crazy. Wusste ich nicht.
Jolly Roger Bay's Ghost Ship. This is something you would never see under normal circumstances, but if you select the first star in Jolly Roger Bay, you would be surprised to find out that there's an invisible ghost ship floating in the sky.
Ich fand das krass, dass man das im B3313, so einem Liminal Space ROM-Hack von Mario 64, dass es das da auch gab.
Doesn't make a lot of sense why they left it there instead of removing it. I guess it doesn't harm anyone. It's invisible and apparently has no collision, but whenever I select the first star in Jolly Roger Bay, I can't shake the thought that somewhere high above the level, a ghost pirate ship is always there, silently hovering. The worlds in the paintings are real. Some of us have wondered if the levels in Super Mario 64 only exist within the paintings, or if the paintings are portals to take you to real locations in the Mario universe. One of the strongest pieces of evidence can be found in Super Mario Galaxy 2, where Mario can access Whomp's Fortress without a painting like...
Ich wollte gerade sagen, so, das ist mir halt auch direkt aufgefallen, ne? Also eingefallen, als er das erwähnt hatte, ob das wirklich echte Orte sind. Das scheint ein echter Ort zu sein, ja.
In Super Mario 64. Another example is the metal cap level inside Hazy Maze Cave. If you follow the river's current, you'll end up falling through the waterfall outside of Peach's castle. Even the signpost inside the level tells you where the waterfall is. This makes me think about Wet Dry World, because if this is the case, this place has to be real in the Mario universe. What kind of world or dimension is this where there's an underwater city within another underwater city? Super Mario 64 DD. There was a 64 DD version of Super Mario 64 that was presented at Space World 96 in Japan, and that was later found by somebody in the same country at a second-hand store. The only differences are a slightly different title screen, music with minor variations, numerous bugs, and extremely long loading times.
It's me, Mario! It's me, Mario!
Die Mairo. Der Bro. Das wirkt bis jetzt wie ein ROM-Hack von der Musik her. Crazy. Ist das intended so? Wild.
Mario's indefinite invincibility. I guess not a lot of people discovered this because once you're hit by an enemy, your instinct is to run away. However, if you receive damage from an enemy and stay within its hitbox, Mario will blink indefinitely, becoming invincible until you move him away from the enemy's hitbox. I'm not sure if that's very useful, but that's that.
Wusste ich nicht.
Metal Mario's reflection. We have reflective textures in Super Mario 64, such as, well, the mirror in the room that leads to Snowman's Land. You may think that Metal Mario works in a similar way, reflecting Mario's surroundings, but you would be wrong. What you're actually seeing is a distorted image of somebody's garden.
Sehr
Super
je.
Mario 64 Skyboxes. When it comes to video games, especially the ones I played as a child, I always wondered what lay beyond the boundaries of what you could explore, and Skyboxes gave us a glimpse. The skybox outside of Peach's castle, Bob-omb Battlefield, Tall Mountain, Dire Docks, and Tiny Huge Island show a blue sky with clouds, but also some islands in the horizon. Womb's Fortress, Tower of the Wing Cap, Rainbow Ride, and the Secret Aquarium feature the same skybox, a blue sky with lots of clouds.
Blue
Shifting
sky.
Sandland has a unique skybox. We can see that the sky has different shades of blue, is more cloudy, and far away we can see a set of pyramids that resemble the Giza pyramids in Egypt. It's
Ich weiß nicht wieso, aber mich erinnert dieser Shot hier, der Wolken, so ein bisschen an Mario Kart Super Circuit, als Title Screen, so checkt ihr?
It's hard to see what the rest of the skybox in Jolly Roger Bay looks like, but the sky gives me a vibe of an early cold morning. In Cool Mountain and Snowman's Land, we can see a pinkish sky with blue mountains covered in snow, although it looks bluish rather than white. So far, nothing too out of the ordinary, except it's not very common to see light blue mountains unless they're icebergs. Big Boo's Hunt has a creepy skybox filled with dead trees. It's not really that weird, considering it's in a level with ghosts and creepy creatures, but here's where it starts getting weird. Bowser in the Sky looks like a distorted sunset, but I don't think it's as weird as the next ones. Bowser in the Fire Sea and Little Lava Land share the same skybox, a fiery black, red and yellow sky that I don't doubt we would see on another planet somewhere in the universe, even
Ich wollte gerade sagen, das sieht ein bisschen Galaxy-mäßig aus, ne?
though it's probably another distorted picture of an ordinary sky. Bowser in the Dark World is weirder. The skybox looks like a dark cavern with green
Ja, Mann, so Stalaktitenhöhle, ne?
stalagmites and stalactites and other weird shapes that don't give you a clue of where you are or what's going on. What
Die Leute denken jetzt Unge-Reaction.
can I say about Wet Dry World? I'll talk about its skybox and way more deeper in the Iceberg. Mist in Jolly Roger Bay. The mist in Jolly Roger Bay is a mystery because it only appears in the first star of the level. Once you select a different star, the mist will be gone even if you go back to the first star, meaning that it has more to do with collecting the first star and not necessarily selecting it. I used a cheat code that allows you to select other stars without completing them first, and the mist wasn't gone. I wonder in what way the first star is connected to the mist, but if you know the answer, let me know in the comment section.
Sehr gute Frage.
The princess's secret slide doesn't fit in the castle. The Vanish Cap level takes place under the moat of the castle, the Wing Cap level above the castle, and the Metal Cap level behind the waterfall if we consider we exit through it. It's not really that hard to picture the existence of these places inside the castle and its surroundings, considering how we enter or exit these levels. However, there's one place that to me makes less sense than others in the game. The
Es sieht ein bisschen aus wie eine Turnhalle, ne?
Princess's Secret Slide. First of all, the castle doesn't seem to have enough space for the long slide that Mario goes down to collect 2 of the secret stars of the castle. I know, it's a game. It's as if somebody wondered why houses in old Pokemon games are tiny from the outside but big from the inside. That said, I would have placed the slide level on the ground floor instead of the second.
Ja, es ist halt schwer auch irgendwie einzuordnen, so wo sich jetzt dieses Secret Slide, diese geheime Rutsche, wo die im Schloss jetzt sein soll. Aber das ist halt eine Frage, da muss man generell die Limitation des Schlosses irgendwie hinterfragen. Ja? Also die Größe von außen und von innen. Also das ist ja ein interner Plexus so mäßig.
Strange face in the ending screen.
Ja.
If there is something as strange as Wet Dry World and its skybox, it has to be the image shown at the very end of Super Mario 64. Bowser is defeated, Mario collects all the power stars, and Peach invites him for some cake. Then we see a cutscene of Mario, Peach and the Toads waving, and everything seems perfect. You would expect that to be the final screen, but instead, we get this. Is it Pareidolia, or is that the weirdest Yoshi picture I've ever seen in my entire life? Most probably it's Pareidolia because it could be just a decoration, and also I don't think Yoshi has those thick eyebrows or that kind of expression, like he's seen something he shouldn't have.
Ja, das ist ein sehr komisches Bild. Ich hatte mir da mal ein Video zu angesehen, zu genau dieser Thematik, aber ich habe vergessen, was jetzt die Conclusio in medias res gewesen ist. So, maybe, dass das gar nicht Yoshi war, sondern, ja, I don't know, so, der Stern verdeckt halt auch, ne, du kannst nicht genau sagen.
Eyebrows or that kind of expression, like he's seen something he shouldn't have.
Aber creepy ist es.
Secret location. If I showed you this picture, would you be able to tell me where it is? This
Secret Slide von Peach?
is the same question I found in a Super Mario 64 challenge in a Nintendo magazine from the 90s. It's not a ROM hack and I didn't use any cheating devices. Anyone with a Super Mario 64 cartridge can do it, but it's quite tricky. As you can see, this place is located in the Princess's Secret Slide level. If getting to the castle's roof was a challenge, let me tell you that getting to this location is probably like 20 times harder. I couldn't find a consistent setup, but my advice is to bounce on this spot so that Mario ends up facing the camera. As you're approaching the very start of the slide's guardrail, jump to leave the slide and then jump in this direction. Ideally, you would press B to dive toward the platform, but in my case, I ended up kicking the air, a technique that barely got me there. It's very challenging, but for some odd reason, very satisfying.
In Super Mario Odyssey hätten die da Münzen reingehauen. Aufs Dach.
Appearing coins during Bowser's defeat. Every time you defeat Bowser in the Dark World and Bowser in the Fire Sea, you can see a bunch of coins for a brief moment when he drops the key before suddenly disappearing. There's a reason for this, because in the Shoshinkai 95 demo, we can see Mario defeating Bowser, but instead of dropping a key, he leaves a bunch of coins and a star. These leftovers suggest Nintendo originally planned to keep this idea much later into development, but ultimately decided against it. It's strange that Nintendo didn't remove the coins entirely, so it could have been just an oversight. Lifeless Mario inside a cannon. I'm sure there are easier ways to pull this off, but I like to spend longer than necessary to show you the footage you're seeing. There's a way to launch Mario from a cannon with 0 energy. Go to Whomp's Fortress and select any star from 3 to 6 so that the owl is available. Go to the piranha plant to the right and let it drain your energy until you're left with 2 slices of energy. Now, climb the tree to wake up the owl and fly with it until you're above the cannon. Let go and try to fall as close to the edges of the cannon as possible so that Mario gets fall damage and at the same time lands inside the cannon. If done correctly, Mario will be inside the cannon without any health left. You can launch yourself into the sky and Mario will be alive while airborne. However, as soon as he lands, he will die instantly.
Was ist, wenn du die Wand aufmachst, wo der Stern oben rechts ist, in der Wand, und du dann auf quasi bis auf deine letzten 2 Leben gehst, dann in die Kanone fällst und den Stern sammelst? Hast du den dann gesammelt oder stirbst du dann in der Sternesequenz?
I was wondering what would happen if Mario collected coins in this state, but no matter how many coins you collect, Mario still dies.
Ich dachte, er sagt jetzt dasselbe, was... Junge.
Obscure hangable ceilings. It's very intuitive when we're in front of a hangable ceiling because, well, it's evident you can use them to hang. However, there are a lot of these ceilings across Super Mario 64 that aren't that evident because they serve no purpose at all or because they're normally out of reach. Something to take into account is that Mario can only hang from any given ceiling as long as he doesn't perform a triple jump. An example of this can be found near the entrance of Peach's castle. However, a much more obscure one appears in the level Wing Mario over the rainbow. The cloud in the center actually has the properties of a hangable ceiling on its underside for some bizarre reason. Even if you jump from the edge, the game registers Mario as being in a
Natürlich haben Leute das ausprobiert.
falling state, which prevents him from grabbing any ceiling. Warpless paintings. In Super Mario 64, if you see a painting, you jump into it, or at least try. As a kid, I assumed every painting had a world to explore, and that the ones that didn't might unlock at some point. I'm not talking about the paintings that repeat around the castle and lead to levels you can access elsewhere, but ones like the painting with a blue sky and clouds. If Rainbow Ride had been accessed through a painting, that one would have fit perfectly. But there's one painting I always wished had been real, the one beside the staircase leading to the 50-star door. It shows a dreamy night sky that reminds me a bit of the nighttime look in the remastered versions of Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario Bros. 2.
Ja, also ganz ehrlich, Mann, die hätten da ruhig noch ein paar Locations mehr reinhauen dürfen, so.
Aside from Big Boo's Hunt, there really isn't another level set at night in the game. It would have been nice to see, not a creepy nighttime setting,
but something magical and calm.
A relaxing night level with the same peaceful atmosphere as Jolly Roger Bay. The Secret Aquarium references the sky in Super Mario Bros. Close your eyes and think about a time you played Super Mario Bros. Now, what color is the sky in level 1-1? Was it purple or maybe blue? Well, in my case, I clearly remember it being purple, but I also recall seeing it blue more recently. It doesn't have to do with the different versions of Super Mario Bros. Since
Ja, also das ist auf jeden Fall die NES-Version, aber ich weiß jetzt nicht, gibt es da Unterschiede zwischen Europa, USA, Japan oder so?
I'm only talking about the original Super Mario Bros. For the NES, and apparently it has to do with the fact that the NES didn't output exact RGB colors like modern consoles. Each TV interpreted these signals differently, therefore the difference. Now, I don't know if this has to do with what I'm about to tell you, but take a look at the sky through the window in the Secret Aquarium. Did you notice that some windows project a blue sky, but there's one that shows it as purple? I wonder if this was done to reference the color differences in Super Mario Bros. Although, to be fair, this happened with all games in the system.
Safe, Bruder.
TTC upward $1,000 bounty.
Aber ey, coole Theorie.
This speedrunning went viral, and for very good reasons. Speedrunner Dota Teabag was streaming a run of Super Mario 64 in TikTok Clock, where Mario is seen jumping on the spinning platforms where you collect the red coins. When completely out of the blue, he's launched upward for no apparent reason. Given how strange it was, some people suggested that a cosmic ray might have hit the console, causing Mario to warp straight up. This fact is both unlikely and unconfirmed, but it's true that ionizing particles can strike sensitive devices such as microprocessors, a phenomenon known as a single event upset. In fact, a scheduled flight from Singapore to Australia made an emergency landing after the aircraft's computer issued uncommanded pitch-down maneuvers, which were suspected to have been caused by a single event upset. These high-energy particles can cause what is known as a bit flip. Depending on what a specific bit represents, changing from 0 to 1 can manifest in different ways. In Super Mario 64, Panecook 2012, an expert in Super Mario 64 mechanics, changed the heights leading byte from C5 to C4, and the result is extremely similar to Dota Teabag's speedrun. However, a single event upset is not the only thing that can flip a bit. In fact, it's the most unlikely among several. This is where Occam's razor comes into play, as the simplest explanation is generally the correct one. In this case, the simplest explanation could be a power supply fluctuation. If you pay attention, you can hear what appears to be construction works around Dota Teabag's house. The mystery is so big that Panecook offered a $1,000 bounty for whoever can replicate what happened during that speedrunning race, but
Ich würde schätzen, da haben so ein paar Elektronen rumgeleckt.
almost 11 years after, the prize remains unclaimed. Losing the Penguins race without cheating. I'm not referring to coming in second place or falling off the slide. I want you to take a look at this footage of me racing the big penguin. Everything goes as normal. I try to collect as many coins as possible, with the exception of the coins that lead to the secret tunnel, because otherwise the big penguin's not gonna grant me the star. The penguin takes the lead for a short time before I pass him, and finally, I win. So I talk to the penguin to get my star and wait, what? Shortcuts? I didn't take the tunnel. Okay, so I've never encountered this before,
ja,
but some of
okay.
you may
Ich glaube, wenn du nach oben springst.
already know why it happened. Instead of staying on the ground, I start wall jumping until I reach the area where you exit the shortcut. I guess being in that area triggers the penguin to think that I used the shortcut, even though I clearly didn't. Let me know if you knew about it, because I didn't know until I was recording the footage for this iceberg. Fail demo. If you thought that The Wizard of Oz has the worst demo in the history of the universe, think again. Super Mario 64 is a contender. There are 7 gameplay demo reels. However, there's data for an 8 demo that went unused. We can see Mario running in Cool Cool Mountain, but he accidentally bumps into a signpost, giving up on whatever he was planning to do next. If this demo had made it into the game, I think it would have become the worst demo of all time.
So.
Gap on top of Peach's castle. As many of you probably did too, when I got all the stars in the game, I went straight to the cannon outside of Peach's castle and launched myself to the roof. Besides Yoshi, the 100 lives and the special jump, I was curious to explore that part of the castle using the wing cap. In one of my attempts, and with a young mind not limited by the notion that video games have limits, I was looking for secret entrances to hidden levels, and while not a hidden level, I did find another entrance to the castle, although it's not what you may expect. If you climb this tower with the aid of the wing cap, you'll fall into a void that leads to the entrance of Peach's castle. However, there's no escape if you end up here, because you'll be in a dark enclosed space. Since you get access to the door, you may think that by going through it, you would fix the problem. The issue is that, even though you enter the door, you're still in this unescapable dark void, and as far as I know, the only solution is to reset the game. BLJ's infinite negative speed at Big Boo's Hunt. One of the most useful glitches in Super Mario 64 is the backwards long jump, or BLJ, no matter if you're a casual player or a speed runner. If you don't feel like collecting a lot of stars to reach the top part of the castle,
You can perform a BLJ on the staircase that leads to the 50-star door,
or on the infinite staircase behind the 70-star door to reach Bowser in the sky without having 70 stars. When you perform a normal long jump, Mario reaches a certain speed,
capped at 48.
However, the game doesn't have a limit for negative speed. You can perform a BLJ basically anywhere by first doing a long jump, then pulling the stick back and pressing A to jump as soon as Mario lands on the floor. Nonetheless, the BLJ that allows you to reach negative speed can only be done on specific surfaces. For example, certain stairs allow Mario to perform multiple jumps as he lands on every step. It
Hallo Teppich.
can be very tricky because the more successful BLJs you get, the faster you'll need to press A to build Mario's negative speed up. However, there's a spot where negative speed can accumulate to such an extreme that it overwhelms the Nintendo 64's capabilities, launching Mario at superluminal speed and sometimes crashing the game. That spot is the elevator in Big Boo's Hunt. I suspect the large number of BLJs you can perform there is tied to the elevator's upward movement, which lets Mario land more quickly between jumps and therefore chain them together much faster. As you can see, I ended up somewhere far away from the map, as the only thing you can see is the skybox, with the level nowhere to be seen. Let me know in the comment section if you've successfully pulled off a backwards long jump. Because good heroes deserve kidneys.
Ich glaube, Mario ist zu Bowser in the Dark World geflogen.
Back in the day, people used to send letters to Nintendo asking what the sign on the power statue said, for example, and someone at the company would reply. Eleanor, also known as Because Good Heroes Deserve Kidneys on Tumblr, said that her husband emailed Nintendo a couple of questions regarding Super Mario 64. Years ago, my husband sent an email to Nintendo asking them a bunch of questions about Mario 64, stuff like how do Bob-Ombs reproduce and who does the second baby penguin belong to and that.
I bring it up because one of the 50-odd questions asked was,
why is there no furniture in Princess Peach's castle? Nintendo of Europe answered every question, so I can canonically tell you that Princess Peach is so rich that she owns 2 castles, one for furniture and one for all her artwork. In case you're wondering, the answer to the other 2 are through a mixture of gunpowder and love and no one. It is its own penguin. I thought that bob-ombs were manufactured, but apparently gunpowder and love are essential to their existence. Also,
Crazy.
I thought that the other baby penguin was the son of the racing penguin, but Nintendo has the last word. It is its own penguin.
Ist einfach selber auf die Welt gekommen. Der Bro.
Mario's unused animations. Mario has a wide range of moves that he can perform in many situations. Nonetheless, there are some that didn't make the final cut. Take a
Das war Mario Party 1. Hangeln. 100%.
look.
Ja. Workout. Das könnte eine Yoshi-Animation gewesen sein gerade. So reiten. Ja, das ist eine alternative Sternsammelanimation.
Dead Zone on the roof of the castle. This is a short one, but a very bizarre thing you can do. Go to the roof of the castle and grab this edge as close to the right as possible. You may need to repeat this process multiple times so you don't risk falling, but every time you do, you get closer and closer to the right. For some reason, if you go too far, Mario will climb, lose his hat, and die as evidenced by Bowser's laugh. I guess this happens because Mario steps out of bounds and maybe the game registers Mario stepping on the bottom of the stage, but the mystery is where his hat went.
Ja, einfach, er wurde entmannt. Seine Kappe ist weg.
Ancient civilization in wet dry world. Civilizations rise and fall, some may last centuries, other millennia, voices drowned by the passage of time, shattered dreams unknown to whoever steps on their ancient ruins. When I think about wet dry world, I think about all those ancient civilizations that perished and that potentially remain undiscovered up to this day. Whether
Ey, ganz ehrlich, Alter, die Aliens, die in 100 Jahren auf die Erde kommen und unsere ausgestorbene Zivilisation betrachten, denken sich auch so, was? Die haben sich ausgelöscht wegen ein bisschen Öl?
or not the legendary city of Atlantis was real, stories of sunken cities have surfaced across cultures all over the world. In the context of Super Mario 64, Wet Dry World resembles the remnants of an ancient civilization forced to abandon its city, most likely in the face of an impending water-related catastrophe. Evidence of this can be seen in the state of the buildings, given that if a massive tsunami had crashed into the city, we would see the place reduced to nothing. Maybe the flooding was gradual, and it gave its inhabitants a chance to escape and settle somewhere else. Perhaps the civilization that escaped ended up building the houses in the skybox of Wet Dry World. Well, probably nobody on the team behind Super Mario 64 thought about it that deeply, but some fans, including myself, love to overthink simple things related to video games.
Ich finde es aber auch schon krass, dass man eigentlich realisiert, ey, wenn der Wasserstand ansteigt, heißt es auch, dass alle, die hier drin sind, naja, halt ertrunken sind, ne?
Underground City doesn't seem to be ancient, at least from a modern perspective. The Mario universe could very well take place in the far future, but I don't think that's ever been mentioned. In fact, some people have claimed that the town originates in some assets from an early build of Ocarina of Time, more precisely shown in this picture from January 1997. I can see the resemblance, but I don't think any of the models or textures belong to Zelda 64.
Ist diese Stage, also ich bin mir nicht ganz sicher, aber welche Stage war nochmal die erste, die Nintendo für SM64 entwickelt hat? War das die hier? Weil es gibt eine Stage im Spiel, wo du richtig erkennen kannst, wie billig die Texturen und so aussehen. Ich weiß nicht, ob das hier ist.
There's a paradoxical aspect in this stage, because Mario is able to breathe on one hand, but on the other, if we look up to the sky, it's more than clear that this world and its skybox are underwater. It's as if Wet Dry World existed inside a bubble beneath the sea. Talking about the skybox, it's impossible to ignore the unsettling city that surrounds the stage. Rows of houses with dark, empty windows that nonetheless feel as if somebody or something is watching your every move. It goes without saying that the surrounding city clashes with the cartoony vibe of Super Mario 64. And it's no surprise because people believe that the place in question is real and that it's located in Casares, Spain, but in reality, it belongs to the Muslim city of Shibam in Yemen. However, the building towering above the city, the Muhammad Ali Mosque, isn't in Shibam, but
Alhamdulillah, Bruder.
in Egypt. I think this is the first connection between a Nintendo 64 game and the Islamic culture, the other being the Muslim chants in the Fire Temple in the first versions of Ocarina of Time. Nonetheless, there's nothing in Wet Dry World's underground city that points at this religion. In fact, there's a building that resembles a Christian church and a giant throne, but the structure in the center of the town looks like a small pyramid.
Weißt du, wenn im Hintergrund bei Zelda Ocarina of Time im Feuertempel so muslimische Gesänge sind, dann ist das too much to handle und wir müssen das entfernen. Aber weißt du, diese Kirche kann stehen bleiben, oder was?
This level is a prime example of unsettling things in non-horror games. In fact, I wouldn't say Wet Dry World is horrific, but more like a liminal space, a place that shouldn't belong in a Mario game, and yet it does. Super Mario 64 Beta. I remember browsing through this magazine back when I was playing Super Mario 64 and I saw this picture. I was like, wait, this is not in the game. Where is it? Why does the penguin look different? What is this level? Back then, I didn't know that video games could have early prototypes that differ from their final versions. I finally understood where that image came from. Before we talk about the Shoshinkai 95 version of Super Mario 64, we need to understand that even earlier footage of the game exists, which was given to visitors at the Shoshinkai 95 trade show in the...
Ja, es gab mehrere solche Events, wo es dann auch unterschiedliche Demos gab mit anderen Health-Meter und sowas. Ich weiß nicht, ob man die andere Demo als B-Roll bezeichnet hat, aber es gibt Level, die nennen sich B-Roll.
Form of VHS tapes. In that VHS, there are 3 builds that predate the one playable at Shoshinkai 95.
Also es gab zumindest... hierfür gibt es bestimmt auch ein B-Roll-Level und für das Eis-Level, was wir eben gesehen haben, gibt es auch eins.
First one is known as the power build because Mario's health meter has that word written. The second is known as POW and the third is a later version of the POW build. Besides this, none of them are that different from the Shoshinkai version except for footage of a level that is nowhere to be found in the final version in any shape or form. I'll talk about it deeper in the Iceberg. Something small but different are Bowser's eyes since in the Shoshinkai version as well as in the final, Bowser's eyes are red, but in these earlier builds, his eyes are blue. This videotape was recorded 1 month before the Shoshinkai 95 event, but now let's move on to the build that was playable at that event. Super Mario 64 was first playable at Shoshinkai 1995, a trade show hosted by Nintendo from November 22 to November 24, 1995 in Chiba, Japan.
Ich will in meiner Lebzeit möchte ich noch dieses Temporary Demo spielen. Mit allen Sternen, die da drin sind.
This build is more similar to the B-roll footage rather than the final version. The life star and coin counter had a cartoony look instead of the downscale 3D renders. We can also see Mario running with a slightly different animation, more comical I would say. Instead of having a stained glass of Princess Peach, it has what appears to be a windrose.
Beta Grounds Castle oder Beta Castle Grounds.
The inside of the castle was a bit different. Instead of a staircase, Mario needed to climb on platforms to reach the center door, but instead of leading you to the next floor, it took you to the hallway where the Bowser painting turns into Peach as you approach it. Instead of entering Bowser in the Dark World, it would take you directly to the Bowser fight. Once defeated, Bowser drops a star and a bunch of coins instead of the key, as I mentioned in a previous Iceberg entry. The door that takes you to Whomp's fortress instead has a painting of Lethal Lava Land. The level has a slightly different layout.
Ich glaube, dieses Level hieß Fire Bubble. Fire Bubble.
But we can already see elements that were present in the final version, such as the Red Coin Bowser puzzle. Bullies had a single spike on their head instead of having two horns, basically recolored chili bullies. The early version of Cool Cool Mountain is located on the left door where Bob-omb Battlefield is, and it also contains a slide that is not the one where you race against the big penguin, but that of Tall Tall Mountain, although way longer.
Yeah.
This is the level where the picture from the magazine I showed you at the beginning of the entry came from. We can see that the penguin had a different design, and also the stars looked way less polished. The room that contains the Jolly Roger Bay level has a painting that takes you to an early build of Dire Dire Docks. This stage has underwater mines, something we didn't see anywhere in the final version.
Und ich frage mich, ob das U-Boot hier auch einen Entry hat, wo du in das U-Boot kommst. Ein Level im U-Boot.
Also, the theme for this level in Jolly Roger Bay sounds a bit different. Take a listen.
The stage we saw at the game was said to be 50% complete, and that perhaps explained why the levels were more sparse, and there wasn't any levels where you were panicked with the amount of enemies or terrible jumps that you had to.
Finally,
Wunderschön.
the door that takes you to Womb's Fortress is located where Cool Cool Mountain is. The layout looks very similar, but a lot of textures are different. One of the most infamous elements about this build is Mario's voice. I don't need to describe it, just take a listen.
Ja! Ja. No!
There are other builds from 1996 that closely resemble the final game. There are still some differences, including some boosts having keys inside them. If you want more information about these early builds, go check TCRF.
Bruder, ich will diesen Bild auch haben. Da gibt's 92 Sterne, Mann.
Lost Levels. In a 1995 promotional video for the Nintendo 64, we can see around 4 seconds of Mario exploring a level that doesn't resemble anything we ended up with in the
Das ist safe ein Testlevel gewesen.
final version. It wasn't until the Giga Leak that we got to see this mysterious level in all its glory. Known as Stage 1 or Castle, the place looks like the top part of a big castle with some stairs, some of which lead to the top of the level, where a blue platform sits.
Ich glaube, das Level gab's auch in B3313, 100%.
YouTuber Skellox actually managed to compile the original level. This is what it looks like.
Leider keine Musik, F. Ja, hättest du mein B3313 100% Longplay gesehen? Auf einem Banyan, mein Freund? Da hättest du auch Musik dazu gehabt. Und sogar Widescreen. Ist das nicht geil? Check das aus, Mann. Einem Banyan in der Beschreibung.
Stage 2 or Athletic is another unused level, although it looks more like a typical test level. For some reason, the area surrounding the level is made up of lava. Stage 3 or Dungeon is another unused map that shows some paintings on the wall. Not paintings with frames, but basically the whole wall painted.
Und irgendwo hinter diesen Gemälden ist hier eine Türe verborgen.
The 121st Star Myth. Some years ago, Swanky Box released a video called Why Obtaining the 121st Star in Super Mario 64 Will Be the Hardest Challenge Yet. In this video, he explained that at the center of the internal slide in Cool Cool Mountain, a 121st star was found in the game's data. He reported the presence of other objects in this part of the level that, due to not working properly, were invisible during normal gameplay, same as the star in question. Swanky Box made the star appear, but it was impossible to touch it. This video gained a lot of attention as expected. However, it only took a week for Swanky Box to release a related video called How Super Mario 64's 121st Star Fooled Me. It's worth noting that he didn't intend to fool his audience into believing in the existence of this star because everything he showed in the video was real. The only problem is that the foundation in which he based everything he did was flawed. He used a Super Mario 64 level editor called Toadstool tool, an old editor that could display dummy data by failing to know when to stop analyzing a specific set of objects. One of these objects, as you may expect, was the fake 121st star. For about a week, a lot of people believed that the star was real, but the harsh reality is that Super Mario 64 only has 120 stars.
Der Bro.
One-way door in Cool Mountain. I think this is the only door in the entire game you can exit but never come back. I'm referring to the cabin door in Cool Mountain. Whenever I exit, there's something that makes me wanna go back, but not being able to go through was always frustrating. If you try, you'll realize that this space acts like a wall because you don't see Mario touching the door. This is because indeed there's a big barrier that prevents you from opening the door. The door is fully functional, and by removing this obstacle by hacking the game, you can indeed go back inside the cabin. The mother penguin's position can be manipulated by rescuing her baby and then grabbing it after she gives you the star. If you position her more or less on this spot, you can clip through the wall if you get between it and her hitbox. You would expect Mario to go back inside the cabin, but instead, Mario will fall to his death. The thing with going through doors is that Mario needs to be in a walking position. He would still go through the door inside the cabin, but the problem is that the cabin's inside is a different area from the main level, and therefore it has to load. In order to load, Mario has to walk through the area designed for the door. I tried to clip through the wall with the mother penguin, but I would always fall to my death because Mario is in freefall. However, in 2024, AlexPalix1 posted a video performing the clip, managing to make Mario walk instead of falling. This happens due to how Mario's turning around action is coded. When Mario lands between the door and the mother penguin, we can see him turning around before clipping through the door. The turning around animation expects Mario to perform the walking animation right after. Once Mario lands on the door's hitbox by walking, the game transitions into the inside of the cabin. This discovery took 28 years, but finally, the unopenable door has finally been cracked.
Was heißt, es hat 28 Jahre gedauert. Vielleicht hat es nur auch schon mal jemand geschafft in den letzten 28 Jahren, nur hat es nicht aufgenommen.
No copy of Super Mario 64 is personalized. I don't think anybody truly believes in the every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalized, even though I actually have a story that has to do with it. When I was a child, I was walking with my parents when I told them to stop because there was a TV inside a popular electronics store displaying Super Mario 64. I recall the two of them fighting on a circular platform with a red carpet, similar to the one in the hallway where Peach's painting turns into Bowser's, surrounded by a black void instead of a skybox. Later, when I finally got my hands on the game and I was fighting Bowser in Bowser in the Sky, I genuinely thought, wow, so there's a fourth Bowser fight, thinking about the fight I remember from my childhood. However, I realized that that was actually the final fight and that what I thought I had seen years earlier wasn't real. If you put me through a lie detector and question me about what I saw, I can guarantee I would pass because I'm telling you what I genuinely remember. But most likely, it would be because it surely is based on a false memory. I'm not saying the personalized Super Mario 64 conspiracy is real, but that doesn't mean it isn't a fascinating topic.
Ich glaube, viele haben einfach als Kinder auch eine sehr große Vorstellungskraft, die mit dem Alter immer mehr schwindet, weil uns das abtrainiert wird vom kapitalistischen Dreckssystem. Aber man kann sich sehr viel vorstellen und ich kann mich bestimmt nicht mehr daran erinnern. Mir fällt jetzt gerade keine Szenarie dafür ein, aber dass du dich an irgendwas falsch erinnerst, falsch im Kopf hast zum Beispiel, an irgendeinem Videospiel. Kann Super Mario 64 sein oder irgendein anderes. Ja, das ist diese ganze Personalized Theory quasi, ne? Hier oben alles ausgedenkt.
In fact, I enjoy most of the videos and stories about it around the internet. Here's a small compilation.
Ja gut, ne? Man kann sich den Bias auch durch YouTube-Videos gucken holen und denken, das ist real. Okay. So habe ich, by the way, nie gedacht. Also für mich ist das Game, was ich gespielt habe, so, wie ich es auch in Erinnerung habe. Aber vielleicht liegt es auch daran, dass ich halt vor der YouTube-Zeit die Videospiele gespielt habe, die ich bis heute noch spiele. Kann deswegen sein, dass ich diese ganzen Videos nicht gesehen habe.
Luigi was real at Shoshinkai 95 and the Alice Real Prophecy. This is a short entry, but it's one of the most interesting because, well, look at this. That's right, that's actually Luigi in Super Mario 64, but in the final version, he's nowhere to be found. Most of you may know that Alice Real 2401 refers to the blurry text on the Power Star statue at the castle courtyard. Some say that's what it actually says, some others that it's Eternal Star, and Nintendo has said that it's just gibberish. However, this never stopped people from believing that Alice Real referred to Luigi being real in Super Mario 64. I think one of the most popular beliefs is that the game contained 2,401 coins, and that once Mario collected them all, Luigi would be playable. A series of leaks that were posted on 4chan known as the Giga Leak took place between 2018 and 2021, but the most prominent took place in July 24, 2020, a leak that contained the model of none other than Luigi himself. Now, this leak took place in July 2020. When was Super Mario 64 released? June 1996. Alice Real 2401 took place exactly 24 years and 1 month later after the release of the game. But it wasn't exactly 24 years and 1 month later, right? Maybe it was off by a few days, a little more or a little less. Well, Super Mario 64 was released in June 23rd, the Giga Leak, July 24th. It's already amazing that, out of all the possible dates, it happened on that specific date, but if it hadn't been off by 1 day, well, what are the odds?
Ja, also ist schon ein lustiger Zufall.
Was about to say, I wonder what Luigi would have played like, but then
Ich meine, was, ne, so, Luigi ist nicht im Spiel, Punkt.
I remembered that Super Mario 64 DS exists.
Tja, Bro.
Forgotten Super Mario 64 attraction in Mexico City. Reino Aventura was an amusement park in Mexico City that operated from 1982 to 1999. If I'm talking about it, it's because there was a debate on what the first official Nintendo attraction at an amusement park was, and out of all the places around the world, Reino Aventura was the first place to receive an official Mario attraction, and it took place back in 1997. La Casa de Mario, or Mario's house, was located in El Pueblo Suizo, or the Swiss village, inside the park. You could easily spot it because it had a giant Mario face on the outside. The attraction began with a guide explaining the history of Mario in a mini museum called Antropolo Mario.
Das ist einfach Universal Studios, bevor es richtig kapitalisiert worden ist. Und du hast dafür safe nur einen Bruchteil bezahlt von dem, was du heute zahlst, um in die Universal Studios zu gehen, um dir Mario anzugucken.
Then, the guide would take the visitors to 4 different rooms. A Killer Instinct themed room, a room based on the Donkey Kong Country series where Cranky would scold the visitors, the Super Mario 64 castle where visitors would find and collect a key to access other areas.
Yo, diese Area, die gibt's ja auch im B313, Alter, die ist einfach... Die haben einfach diesen actual Ort genommen, wie
And a Tetris-themed room. There was also an official Nintendo store selling pins, caps and t-shirts, but you could also play different games on 4DS, NES and N64 consoles available at the place. I wish I had a personal story to tell, but I think I went to Reino Aventura too early, so I never got to experience it. However, YouTuber GG Above Average Gamer has a video telling his experience at La Casa de Mario. Take a listen.
So when you went inside, the tour guide would start telling you a story about Mario and his adventures of through the Mushroom Kingdom. Then after that, you would go through like some mazes, a little maze, a little tunnel that would spin and have like the Super Mario stars and things like that. Super Mario themed stuff. Then at the middle of the ride, they would have you go inside a submarine, and then the submarine would start moving, going up and down. And it's like, again, like the tour guide was with us the whole time, telling us, where we were.
Ist das auch mit Außen-Area gewesen eigentlich? Also wir haben ja gerade ein bisschen gesehen, ne? Es ist halt echt heftig. So, das scheint so ein kleines Gebiet gewesen zu sein mit ein paar Häusern und so.
And on the sides there would be like the fishes, swimming around, and the squids and bubbles, and it was really fun. Like I said, for a 6-year-old me. Then after after a while, it would stop, and then the tour guide would say, said that Bowser was attacking us, and that Mario needed to save us. So after that, she would be like hurrying us up, and rushing us out of the submarine and tell us, okay, you gotta go, you gotta run. And after that, we would run all the way to a warp pipe. And in this warp pipe was a slide. So you would go down the warp pipe, and you would go down the slide, and you would come out in this big game room, which actually have a picture partially of what it looked like. And in this game room, you could play Super Mario 64, Killer Instinct, Donkey Kong, and I think Diddy Kong too. But yeah, and that was basically the ride. It was.
Bruder, das ist einfach so Ikea Kinderparadies nur in Deluxe, Alter.
I think it was, like I said, the first official ride ever.
Like, wart ihr mal, also gut, das geht jetzt an meine 90er Baujahr Leute, also die Dinosaurier unter uns. Könnt ihr euch daran erinnern, dass ihr mal in einem Ikea wart und da so Playstations, also Spielstationen gewesen sind mit PS2, PS1, N64 und dann war da Super Mario 64 zum Beispiel und das konntest du auf dem Fernseher spielen? Junge, das waren Zeiten.
And I was actually able to experience it the last year it was actually opened.
If anybody has any information, pictures or footage of La Casa de Mario, please let me know in the comment section because, as you can see, the existence of this place was poorly documented.
Schade.
Super Mario 64 Big Star Secret. The early days of YouTube, when you could rate videos with stars, post video responses, and there were no ads on the platform. Well, around 2009, I was reliving the good old days with Super Mario 64 and of course, I wanted to know its secrets, so I went online and I started watching a lot of videos about it, and I very vividly remember this video with Mario in a black and blue outfit exploring Peach's courtyard, cutting to some Windows Movie Maker text explaining something about the Power Star statue, while creepy music played in the background. It was a very suspicious video, but I kept watching out of curiosity. At the end of the gameplay footage, I remember the music going silent, and don't worry, I'm not gonna scare you if you already know what I'm talking about, but then I experienced one of the worst jump scares of my life. Many years went by since that time, but in the same way I'm thinking right now, where's that song that I heard at a clothing store back in 1998 or 1999? True story, by the way. I thought, I remember that Mario jump scare video, so I went online a couple of years ago just to find out that it had become lost media. I don't know why precisely, but that realization made me feel sad. Maybe it was the fact that I wanted to access a random moment of my past, a truly happy time in my life, just to realize that it was completely inaccessible. I even checked my old hard drive to see if I had the video because I used to download videos back then, but it was nowhere to be found. It was then when reality hit me, when you know you had something and lost it for good, something coveted by people like me who experienced Super Mario 64 as well as YouTube in its infancy. The case gained attention thanks to YouTuber Marvel, who posted a video in August 24, 2020 sharing his experience as a 9-year-old looking for Super Mario 64 DS videos, but ending up watching the video in this entry. Marvel joined the Lost Media Wiki Discord where he described the situation. Shortly after, he got a message from Dykate, the founder of the wiki. He sent him a link to a Reddit post, and from that moment on, he realized he wasn't alone. For example, in 2015, a user called SoCoolLogos on the Screamer forums asked if anyone remembers said video. As expected, some users did remember a lot of the details, a black and blue Mario, something about unlocking Luigi, and the Screamer part at the end. In 2017, somebody called the wiki user 123 replied. He even provided a link to a reaction video he had found, but sadly, the reaction video was privated when this post was discovered. Lots of people had asked the same question years prior. A user by the name of Chili Pepper Rhythm said he actually got in touch with the original uploader, a user by the name of LotusMan14. He asked about the video, but according to him, the user had removed it because of copyright issues. videos. However, the name wasn't LotusMan 14, but LotusMan 17 because somebody in the search found a screenshot of the YouTube video on the Wayback Machine. The title? Super Mario 64 Big Star Secret.
Bitte, Lotusmann, lad es wieder hoch. Bitte, Lotusmann.
The video wasn't available anymore, but the page contained an important piece of information, a video response. Back then, people could watch a video, make a video response about it, and post it on the original video's watch page for that user and everyone else to see. The quality was extremely low, but you could tell that Mario was there, as well as the infamous screamer showed at the end of the video.
Bruder, das ist einfach Reaction-Content. Unter 2010.
Therefore, confirming that it was real and not a collective false memory. Let's take into account that this is not the video that the wiki user 123 was talking about, because, unlike it, this video response has always been available on YouTube. The video provided by the wiki user 123 on the Screamer forums was still missing. However, TheEisenBergExperience managed to contact LotusMan17, who later joined the Discord and answered all the questions from the search group. He said that the video was made with Windows Movie Maker, that he made the video out of boredom, and that he recorded the footage with a Motorola Razr flip phone, and that the way the castle in Mario looked was because he used a tool called Toadstool 60.
Krass, Alter. Also das Ding ist halt, Modding von Spielen damals war halt nicht so einfach, ne? Also, Respekt so.
For a Super Mario 64 editor, the video got over 700,000 views, but as you can imagine, screamers weren't something that people were eager to watch. Therefore, he got a lot of hate. First, he disabled the comments, but then he deleted the video. Even worse, LotusMan17 confirmed that he didn't have the original video or any of the project files, so it seemed that the search was over for good. Remember the wiki user 123 from the Screamer forums who posted a link to a privated reaction video? Well, a key member of the search by the name of Syndexmon was able to track down the uploader through a collection of all YouTube data. He was contacted and shared the privated video. Compared to the response video, this video's quality was god.
Small fragments started surfacing on the internet
Thanks to the collective efforts of these researchers. However, all we got was videos of people watching parts of the video. What about the video itself? Here's where Syndexmon plays a key role. He came up with a completely unorthodox method to try to find the video. It didn't rely on the internet, but on people and their old computers. Back then, YouTube used Adobe Flash to play videos. These videos were stored as TMP files in old computers, but as soon as the video ended or the browser was closed, those files would be deleted. Here's where the search becomes unbelievable. According to this, if someone in late 2000 was watching Super Mario 64 Big Star Secret and for some reason forced the computer to shut down or the power went out, there's a chance that the TMP file of that video remained intact. Now, what are the odds of somebody's grandma unplugging their computer while watching Super Mario 64 Big Star Secret? I don't know.
Ja, so, genau das, Alter. Mach mal Fenster auf, Kipp. Jetzt mal, also, no hate, aber ist das 20 Jahre altes Video wieder ausgraben, damit man es dann wieder sehen kann. Fühle ich irgendwo, aber come on, Alter.
Know if 1 in a million or 1 in a billion or a trillion, but one was correct because it happened to one person, Berserker64. He gets in touch with the search team and they get their hands on the hard drive. What happened then? It just so happened that the specific hard drive that Berserker64 had was extremely prone to corruption. And guess what happened? Not only was it corrupted, but it started smoking. The file was beyond salvation. This is where the search went cold, or so it seemed. 4 days later, a guy called Peter was checking his temp folder, and he found this.
Sie haben es gefunden. Uwu Tamam Cinema. Why is it here? Es gibt ROM-Hacks zu SM64 und DS, die haben genau dieselbe Textur genutzt wie dieses Schloss. Diese schwarzen Ziegelsteine.
This is the one, the very video I recall, but there's a
dass es davon
catch.
stammt.
The original video was 5 minutes and 13 seconds. Peter's video, only 40 seconds. That happened because he got bored of the video and clicked off. But how is it that he had that TMP file if he clicked off? It's not that he forced the computer to shut down, or that there was a blackout at that moment. How did the TMP file remain? It was all due to the fact that the file index.dat, a file that deletes cache files, was completely gone from Peter's computer. Why? Well, to this day, nobody really knows. This is where the search sits. I hope this iceberg reaches out to a lot of people, so if you remember watching this video, whether you forced your old PC to shut down or not, if you still have it, maybe check the TMP folder.
Ja, Leute, los, jetzt guckt, ob ihr eure ganz alten PCs von 2005 noch irgendwie am Strom und angeschaltet habt. Und dann guckt mal, ob ihr diese TMP-File findet. Die Welt brennt, Alter. Hier habe ich keine anderen Probleme.
May hold the key to solve one of the most fascinating lost media cases. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment if there's something you didn't know, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and if you're interested in Pokemon, subscribe to Iceberg as well. See you in the next one.
Ey, gutes Video trotzdem, auch wenn ich sagen muss, das letzte hat mich echt auseinandergeprügelt, Alter. Junge, hättest du auch 5 Minuten kürzer machen können, aber ich verstehe, dass du die Story abdecken willst, aber das ist doch eigentlich... Was hat das mit Super Mario 64 zu tun? Das hat mit einem Super Mario 64 ROM-Hack Eisberg vielleicht zu tun. Oder Creepy Eisberg oder was auch immer, aber so Berührungs-Game-Facts, Mann. I don't know. Aber das war der Eisberg, I guess. Bis zum nächsten Mal und gehaben Sie sich wohl.